In this lesson, we'll add some lights and fins to our capsule. So let's go ahead and add a piece up here on the top that's kind of going to fit in with this piece. And I just want to use or start with a primitive, and let's just start with a sphere. Let's go ahead and bring up the sphere, and I want to drop it kind of right in here. Now go into the object settings here, or the attributes, and let's go ahead and I'm going to turn on lines so that we can see it. I'm going to go ahead and rotate this, and I want to rotate it 90 degrees. Okay, and I also want to come in and scale this, but if I come in here, you can see that I can only scale it uniformly. And so I'm going to go ahead and make that editable, and then I can go ahead and scale it like that. And let's scale it down a bit in that direction. All right, so we get something like that. Let's now select some of the polygons. So I'm going to select basically this polygons on the back. We can go to lines if we just want to make sure that we've got them all. Now let's go ahead and extrude those out. Okay, extrude that out. I'm going to give it 2 subdivisions. Okay, now I also want to use my knife with loop mode activated to add a couple more edge loops in there. Okay, and then when it comes time, we can smooth that as well. Now I want to add some lights to the front. To do this, I'm going to use a loft. So let's go ahead and create a spline. I'm just going to create a circle. I want to orient it along the X, so let's go ahead and change this to ZY. And we'll pull that down. Let's take the radius of our circle down a bit. Okay, think of this as kind of the base of our headlight, and I want it to sort of go right back onto the curved surface here. Make this a bit larger. So from the front view, I've just sort of aligned it. And let's take this down just a little bit, maybe 35 or so. All right, I'm going to go ahead and make that editable, and I'm also going to drag out a copy with Control. So on one of these copies, I want to go to point mode, select the points, and now right click, and I want to go to project. So I want to project this back onto the surface here. So I'll go to project. Now we can choose how we want to project it, if we want to use the view or a particular axis. In this case, I want to project it back along the x-axis, so I'll use the ZY plane, and we'll say apply. And now you can see that that spline has been projected back along that surface. So now we want to create geometry between these 2 splines. So to do that, we can create a loft NURBS and start to drop the splines in there. And the order of these is really important. So it's going to go from basically top to bottom or bottom to top. So any splines that you have in the middle, you want to actually be in the middle in your hierarchy. So right now I can go ahead and I can take that spline and move it back, and you can see how that updates. So go ahead and bring that back. Let's actually scale it down just a little bit. So we get something like that. And now we can start creating more geometry here. So I can just Control drag on the spline, and I want to actually pull this out on the other side of it. And I want to pull this spline in and out to create a little bit of kind of a rim here. Let's do the same thing. I'll Control drag it up to the top. Pull this in a little bit, and I can start to pull it back, straight back in the X. Okay, and then I can do the same thing here. Pull that back. So now it's extruding here from this curve to this curve to this curve to this curve to this curve, which is all the way at the back. Okay, I can make a copy here and drag it above this, and then I can go ahead and pull it out. Let me go ahead and center that. Pull it forward and just scale it out just a little bit to give us a little bit of kind of a bevel there. But then you can get that sort of a look. Okay. Now if you wanted to have no caps on this. If you want to separate this, you could say none, none, okay, and then that's hollow. And then you could make the lens separate. So we could take this circle, this last circle here, and I could control drag it outside of the loft and just add an extrude NURBS to it, okay, without any movement. Go ahead and move this forward a bit. Or you could also use a sphere if you wanted to create your lens, okay? And then you can use symmetry to add that over to the other side. But a loft is really powerful in that you can create geometry between a series of splines. Just remember that the order of the splines matters when you drop them into your loft NURBS, okay? If I turn that off, you can see the order of those splines there. Okay, so I've just taken the two, the one I projected and the original, and then duplicated the original back to create that geometry. Okay. I also want to create a couple of real quick fins up here. To do that, I'm just going to use let's just use a polygon cube, and I'll just make it pretty thin. And I want to give it just a couple of divisions here. So let's actually, we can leave that. I guess in the Z is pretty much where we just want to have those divisions. We can also add a little bit of a fillet to the side so it's not completely. Let's go ahead and increase that, and we'll decrease this radius a bit, just so it's not completely sharp. Okay, now we can take this cube, go ahead and make it editable, and I just want to drop it up in here. And again, the design, you can kind of do what you want, but I want to have something up here as sort of a fin shape. I'll go ahead and increase the size in that direction. And then we can go ahead and select those points. Kind of pull those down a little bit, and then these as well. Okay, and then maybe we can shape it a little bit by sort of pulling these points forward. Again, whatever you want to do. And then if you want to bevel that edge, you can go ahead and select it. Go to bevel, and then you can bevel that edge. Add some subdivisions in there. And there you go. All right, so now that we've got a couple lights added, and light here, kind of we could use this as a light up here, and then the fins. The next thing that we want to do is to add a little bit of detail to the canopy. So right now it's just kind of a flat in here. We want a little bit of a rim in here, and then we want to add kind of a lip on the canopy itself. So we'll go ahead and do that in the next lesson.